Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lucy Gray, and this is Actionable Innovations Conservation Conversations. Today, we're joined by Kelly Gray of Barnard College and Migdalia Sanabria, who should be here shortly. And Don Buckley will be following up Kelly's presentation with a few questions and discussion with the group, and we're happy to have you all here. So Kelly, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Before we get started with the conversation, as Lucy mentioned, I'm just going to go over, just to give you a quick overview of my work at the Design Center at Barnard College, as well as one of our recent community collaborations, which is a program called STEAM in the City. So just a bit about me. I'm an educator and designer. I think I've met some of you here today who are not part of the Actionable Innovations group. But basically, I find myself to be a designer an educator who's interested in sustainable ways to get design education in schools, especially that serve students from diverse backgrounds and that they can really engage with and that is relevant for them. And my current role is the Associate Director of the Design Center at Barnard. So what is the Design Center? The Design Center is an incubator for creative making on campus. It's an open and inclusive studio space for active experimentation with materials, tools, equipment, and supporting the design of objects, as well as the pedagogy and learning associated with making. Our team, which consists of me, a coordinator, we have a couple of undergrad assistants, as well as a full-time fellow who's a recent graduate of Barnard College. And we're all committed to addressing design justice and inclusivity in the fabric of our programming and our operational framework. To provide equitable access to design technologies with the center, we were trying to make sure that we're also empowering members of the Barnard community to discover, experiment with, and pilot new technologies and design practices. And this is really important to us because we've gotten feedback, and myself included, have been to many makerspace environments that tend to be very exclusive, expecting users to kind of self-learn through how to use tools and equipment, and that can feel, a little overwhelming for students who are just starting out trying to learn, a new skill. And we believe that our approach which is to offer students support and encourage them to explore and tinker in our space, with help and guidance from the staff here. We've gotten really good feedback on that. And the students have told us, and they come back and they say they're inspired to come in and work in our space for that reason. So we're really proud of the way that we've kind of set up our space. So I just wanted to share just a quick examples of some of the work that students have done in this space. The students at Barnard and at Columbia tend to be very socially conscious, and that's reflected in a lot of their art and designs. We've also collaborated with faculty and different academic departments at the college to support design in courses. This is an example of a class in the architecture department called Dynamic Design, where students use a 3D printer to create some just different shapes and elements that they could inspire them in their work in architecture. We also collaborate with different centers and other departments at the college, and one of them is the sustainability department at Barnard, which hosts a lot of events to get students excited about thinking about sustainable practices, having a circular campus, and what we can do to improve our carbon footprint in the city and then at the school at large. This is an example of a kind of fashion design challenge that students did in the Design Center called Women, Clothing, and Climate, where they were using recycled materials to create different designs. And this is just an example of that, using the sewing machines in the space. And we also have students that come from many different disciplines outside of the typical design ones. We have students that come from music, dance, and they're all exploring different ways that they can explore their work and their art and their design in the space. This is an example of a photography student who was trying to figure out different ways to display their work. A model built by an architecture student. And this is another kind of mixed media model, 3D printed and laser cut.
Hey,
Lucy, did you have a question?
Yeah, there
Sure.
is a really strange a gray square over your slides, and I'm wondering if something popped over your slides. Do you see anything strange? Do you want to unshare and reshare?
Is it gone now?
Yeah,
it's gone now.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yay, thank
Yeah,
you.
it was telling me about the live stream, but
Sorry, that's my fault.
okay,
Thank
got
you.
it. No worries. Okay. All right, great. So that's just another example. And we also do our own specialized series of workshops in the space. So, we try to think of different programming that's going to inspire students to explore design in different ways. On the left is a picture of a 3D modeling workshop where they learned how to model with a program called Blender and then how to take their designs and 3D print them. And we also communicate with our community mainly through social media and newsletters. We post student work as well as our different events that are upcoming on our Instagram page, which has become really popular on campus. And currently we're hosting a series of talks and workshops with designers and artists, professional designers and artists, usually locally in the New York area, whose practices intersect with STEAM. So we have that to look forward to. But one of our more recent collaborations is the STEAM in the City program, which we're going to talk about now. So STEAM in the City is a new initiative that was funded by the Stavros Niarchos Foundation to support the creation and implementation of new STEAM curriculum in Harlem K-8 schools in the Morningside Park area. And the goal of this was to use local parks and spaces and public spaces to help teachers kind of facilitate using those spaces as living labs and learning sites. This project was started by the Office of Community Engagement and Inclusion at Barnard, which is a new office that was just established late 2020, early 2021. And their goal was to foster an ecosystem of civic engagement for the community and community stakeholders. Oh, sorry, yes, Lucy. Was there another tech issue or? Oh, no, sorry, maybe that's another hand was raised from later, sorry. Zoom issues. Yeah, so basically, the office, their goal was to kind of foster an ecosystem of civic engagement for the college and community stakeholders, and this was one of their first initiatives. It launched in July of 2021. It was kind of mid-July with a week-long professional development institute, and Barnard professors and other campus stakeholders, including myself and the design center. We partnered with local community members, so people who work at different community gardens, people who work in the parks department, and we tried to come up with a program that would give best practices to engage and educate the teachers in how they can explore STEAM in the classroom, specifically around the subjects of ecology, environmental science, architecture, urban design, and urban beekeeping, which was a really fun one for the teachers. So we have a little video that I'm going to share.
I need to find ways of making my children, my students, more interested in science, get them more excited about it. So I was like, let me get myself excited with this STEAM in the City, and let me see what comes out of it so I can bring it back to the classroom.
STEAM in the City is a program with Barnard College, the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, and the Office of Community Engagement and Inclusion, which provides an opportunity for teachers in Harlem, K-8, to learn about STEAM curriculum and experiential learning.
I'm excited about getting to talk about how we can re-engage with our community right now with STEAM curriculum. We are identifying the trees and we are measuring the carbon dioxide levels. It relates to the curriculum that I'm teaching, and it actually allows students to have real-life application of the knowledge that they learn in the classroom to apply it to studies around their neighborhood and their park.
You can learn so much in a park like this. Partnering with Barnard, it's bringing kids from local schools and teachers from local schools in together to learn about this natural resource that we have right in our midst.
A lot of teachers don't have the chance to necessarily be creative in the classroom, and coming to something like this where they get to use a space like the Design Center where it's kind of sky's the limit for what you want to create is really inspiring, and it kind of brings them back to when they were kids.
This inspires me as a teacher to get students to think outside the box. This would help me a lot because this would be a space that I can come in and practice a little bit before I take it to the kids, or I can just ask more about how to use different machines, and I understand now that the staff is here to learn about all of this cool stuff.
I want the teachers to learn a little bit about the amazing biology of honeybees, but I also want them to come away with an appreciation for how important honeybees and other bee species are for both our agricultural system, but also natural ecosystems.
It's so awesome to be up here on the roof with all these bees. A lot of my students are bugged out by bees, so I think by learning about this, it's going to help them have less of a fear, and we can learn more about our ecosystem.
This is great just to learn about bees. Hopefully I can actually make an affiliation and have possibly a beehive near my school so we can actually study them.
My students are going to get a better teacher out of this experience that I had. The actual hands-on experiential learning just opened my eyes to so many more things that I can do with my students outside of the classroom.
I'll be more like a facilitator in the classroom, and I'm excited to see what that looks like.
Okay, so yeah, so that was a kind of quick overview of what the week looked like for the students, or for not for the students, for the teachers who were the students in that situation. And my part in this program as a stakeholder was to provide design and implementation strategies that align with the lessons that they were learning from the Barnard faculty and the Institute. So the Institute was a 5-day, long program. In the mornings, they would work with, the faculty at Barnard, learning different things that they could use in the classroom. And then in the afternoon, I would work with them on design and implementation strategies. So many teachers hadn't had a formal experience with design thinking or design ideation in the classroom. So it was really important in this institute to provide them with the resources and hands-on experiences that they could adapt and then bring to their classrooms. One way that we did this was to do a rapid design challenge. So we asked them to come up with creative solutions and how to improve Morningside Park, which is a local park that's near the schools as well as Barnard College. And the teachers worked in groups to go through the steps of the engineering design process to come up with solutions and create models of their design ideas that they had. This is an exercise that they can adopt to their needs as needed with their students in the classroom, going through a wide age range. We have kindergarten teachers as well up to 8th grade. So, it's a good project that they could adapt and according to what they need to be able to do. And one of the teachers in their cohort is actually going to be taking her students to the park, I think next Friday, to replicate the engineering design process and have them do a design challenge there. So we're going to go out and support that, which is really great. And then we also have one of the amazing teachers from the cohort here with us today, Migdalia. Migdalia is a Bronx native and a full-time science educator and teaching mentor at the Isaac Newton Middle School in Harlem. And so we're really excited to have her to share her insights as a teacher working, in today's climate in New York City schools, as well as her perspective on this program. So that's pretty much all my slides. Thank you for listening. And I'm going to hand it over. I think Don has some questions for us, so I'll hand it over to Don.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. And hi, Migdalia. Nice to meet you here. And,
Nice to meet all of you.
Yeah, great. Just a quick history. I know Kelly a couple of years. She was a student at Teachers College Columbia and took my class, which has the awful title of Managing Educational Technology Resources, but it's actually really design thinking in education. That's what it's about solving problems in education using design thinking. So welcome again, both of you, and thanks for the share. So Kelly, I'll start with you. Where did the idea of the design center come from?
Yeah, so the idea of the Design Center actually came from conversations around what kind of essential programming a library needs. And the Design Center is actually a really, really new center at Barnard. We didn't have a Makerspace prior to the Design Center, which was built up in 2018. And it came with the new library. So Barnard library was completely rebuilt. It took a few years to finish the project, but it was rebuilt and opened up in the fall of 2018. And basically, there were conversations around, what kind of facilities and, spaces that students need on campus. And some of the programmers who were, thinking about how we were going to design the library in this, as a whole, had visited schools and seen libraries like at UNC and thought, we needed a makerspace in our library. And so that's kind of where the idea came from. But we wanted it to be a little more than a makerspace. We wanted it to be also a kind of educational center as well. So not just a place for students to come in and work on their own, but also having our own programming and thinking about it from a pedagogical perspective as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And also there was feedback from faculty in the architecture departments and engineering departments where they just felt that, because they had such small studio spaces, that their students needed more spaces to work, to be able to build out their models and do their work. And so that's kind of where it came from.
Right. And so how did you get involved in it, Ellie? How did you end up there?
So I actually started as a graduate assistant while I was doing my master's program at Teachers College. I was just looking for something on campus that kind of related to what my interests were. My degree was in educational technology at the Teachers College. So I thought, working here might align, and I kind of just ended up, staying for a little bit, still here now, and now running the space. When they were hiring, when they hired me, they were looking for people to kind of build out the programming. And I had experience teaching design before, and, just a general interest in making and the pedagogy of making. So that's, long story short.
So I'll ask my favorite question, and this will be to both of you, but firstly to Kelly. How do you bring inspiration into the design center?
That's a great question. Yeah, I feel like for me, my inspiration comes from a lot of places, and a lot of times it's really, these kinds of collaborations, like talking to other educators, seeing what they're doing. Also, feedback from the students at the college. I find that, a lot of the students have, great interests and things that they want to explore, but maybe they don't have the opportunity to do it in any other place on campus. So, talking to them, hearing what they're interested in, and then we kind of pursue it. And also, going to your typical kind of conventions and things around making, joining groups locally, and hearing from other educators is really inspiring.
Right. And Migdalia, how about you? How do you inspire your students?
I actually asked them questions about what do they think it's an issue or a problem, or what's on your mind that you wish you had a solution for. I think engaging in conversations of things that they might be worried about or things that they have interest in allows agency and kind of like buy-in, and then the students actually get more curious about it. So we kind of start with like a conversation, like what do you want to study, what do you want to know more information about, and then from there we kind of narrow it down to what is each student's specific interest, and it might vary differently for each student and each class.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think empowering students like that, letting them design and sort of lead parts of it, I feel that's absolutely, and I do that all the time, asking them for their input. And because it's part of what I tell them. If you're an educator, there's 3 things you need to think about: teach, very obvious one; learn, I need to be learning; and then sharing. And that is my mantra with my students as well, to get them to be inspired. So I guess this could be for both of you. Where did the idea of STEAM in the city come from? Who bring that up?
Yeah, I'll start out. It was, basically, I think I mentioned it was powered by that Stavros Niarchos Foundation. And the idea for it was from that Office of Community Inclusion Engagement to kind of strengthen Barnard's ties to the local community. Because, I'm not sure if very many of you are familiar with the Barnard Columbia campus. We're based in Harlem, and we're, take up a lot of space in this area. And so, for Barnard, it's really important, for us thinking about the future and, how the college lies within the community in Harlem, that we need to be collaborating with local parks and the schools and supporting, because we have so many resources here. And, what can we do to help out as much as we can, especially in, this kind of pandemic climate, where it's, we're not really post-COVID yet, but, it's still, we're back in schools, but how does that look? And, kind of having this program starting right now is really important, because we're able to support and financially support as well with getting some of these kind of different types of lessons that are not necessarily structured in the classroom, but it's getting people out into the local environment, getting them in the parks, which is, safer when it comes to COVID and everything. So yeah, that's pretty much from our perspective. And Migdalia, you can add in as well.
I actually was interested because I received an email from my principal, but I also wanted to actually learn different ways to allow my students to see a park as a classroom. I wanted them to be able to, I want them to be able to go to the park and say, oh, I remember in Miss Sanabria's class, we were looking at classifying leaves or, measuring the circumference of the tree trunks so that they can extend their learning. And also I wanted to make it fun and engaging. I knew that starting September 2021 was going to be a challenging year. And I wanted to create an environment where students weren't stuck in the classroom, because I knew the transition was going to be difficult for some of our students. And now having this opportunity where, yes, we're not stuck in the classroom, we can actually go outside and collect data and analyze things, bring it back into the classroom, take photos, and really dive into the science and connect the concept of what we're learning in the classroom to the outside learning. I'm so excited about it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important to shift learning outside of classrooms, just move the context. And, you can teach chemistry in the kitchen, you don't need the lab, and bringing education just outside of what the traditional classroom, I just think is really important. And I do that, as Kelly knows, with my graduate students as well, where we go on voyages. So I bring them to somewhere that's not necessarily, a classroom, it's somewhere else, if it's a furniture showroom, if it's a software company, whatever it is, but it's that. And I just think the more we do that, the better learning happens with our students. So I love the idea that it is, the city and it is outside, and there's so much to see and explore, and what you notice and how much of a better observer you become, which is a trait of an innovator that's so important for the students to have, to be great observers. So I love the fact that it is in the park. Just logistically about the program, I know you did the kickoff, right? The kickoff happened this summer. Is there sort of sessions throughout the year that you've planned?
Yeah, and I'll let Migdalia answer because they just did a PD. We planned a couple of them for the fall, and then also we're going to do more in the spring. And we try to work around the teacher schedules, to make sure that we're not kind of being too intrusive. But they've done one, I think last week, and then I'm going to have one with them November 10th to come back into the design center. A lot of the teachers are really interested in setting up their own makerspaces, so we're going to go over some different ways to do that. And again, a great thing is that because this is like kind of privately funded, we're able to get any supplies that they might need and also help to kind of deliver and help with the facilitation. So it's a really unique and kind of privileged position to be in, which is great. Yeah, but if Migdalia, you want to share, like you guys did, you went back to the park, right? And did some work,
So I'm so excited because this is not just like we had the summer PD and, we're off on our own. This is a year partnership. And so me, myself, and the educators, we expressed like, we want to do this in the classroom, but we want to do it correctly. And we want to make sure that it's engaging. And so we actually had a professional development on Monday, and it allowed us to really be confident to allow the students and build activities that allow critical thinking and allow them to really use the tree guide, because using a tree guide is actually a skill within itself. We actually use the New York City street map website, where we can actually go and look at our street trees and see if we're classifying them correctly based on the shape of the leaves or the tree trunks. And then we can actually now take it a step further. Like I'm actually taking my students out to Thomas Jefferson Park, which is the nearby park near our schools. And now that I feel comfortable with the students really practicing the skills of identifying trees and also measuring the circumference, so they can understand how much carbon dioxide was absorbed from the atmosphere. This opens up a whole level of really, really great discussions about well, what do we need trees? Or do we see, variations of trees in different neighborhoods? Hurricane Ida just happened and certain neighborhoods were flooded. Maybe if we planted more trees, maybe we could have avoided it. So it just opens up really great platform for students to ask really great thinking questions. And on top of that, I also learned in the PD that there is the Merlin Bird app, and they can actually look at birds. I actually saw a woodpecker, and I was able to classify it based on the Merlin app that I can download from my phone. They can, learn the sound. They can learn how the ecosystem is important for that bird, which is actually important for the curriculum that I'm teaching, which I'm teaching eighth graders living environment. And it all ties in with symbiosis relationship so well and beautiful. It's like in action, symbiosis in action.
Right, yeah. Did you know there's also one called Leaf Snap that'll identify trees for you?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, there is. And actually that was developed at Columbia University. And I see a former colleague of mine just came on, Greg, but that one was developed and designed by Peter Belhumer. He's a computer science professor on the Columbia campus. So there might be an interesting connection there, Kelly, I'm thinking as well. And I'm not sure what Peter's up to these days. Greg, you may know, but that's just a nice connection. So Migdalia, I have to ask you, what was your most memorable experience in the STEAM in the City program? What was that wow moment that you'll never forget? It's like, wow.
I mean, there were so many great moments. I went to the rooftop. I saw the beehive. It inspired me to really look into the research and the logistics of possibly doing that near my school. Also, being with a variety of group of teachers and really understanding the engineering and design process. There is a lot of focus in engineering and design, but some of us don't really know how to do it correctly because we weren't taught how to teach it correctly. And so learning from Kelly as a student, I had my student lens on, I was a student, we went through the same process that my students are going to go through. I said, wow, this is so much fun. Students love to build, they love to make things, and understanding the logistics of making a design and how it can benefit the environment. That was one of my biggest aha moments when I finished the PD. Just really understanding the engineering design process, and it can be implemented anywhere. For instance, my school has a very old building, and we don't have the latest state-of-the-art science lab. So this could be an engineering design problem. How can we make, this X amount of years lab updated so that it can look like a 2021, lab and have everything that you need to be successful.
Right. There's someone just wrote in the chat that they love your energy, Migdalia, and I can sense that through this digital Zoom as well. It's awesome. So my final question, my final question to you guys before I open up the audience is there any question I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm just now getting into the chat a little bit, and there were a couple questions that people had put in here. I think someone asked about if the students can visit the Barnard, and the answer to that one is that we right now, just because of restrictions around vaccinations and accessing campus for the COVID, we had special permission to have the teachers come, and they have their own IDs and everything so they can access campus, but the students aren't able to come right now. But it is our goal, and hopefully maybe if things are better in the spring, they can come in with the students to the design center and actually use the makerspace here, which will be really, really fun. And we also have our student workers and also just students at Barnard that are really interested in education and would love to work with the students in the local community. So I think that would be a great potential partnership. And we have a day maybe where it's a public day where we have students and teachers come from the public and use our space and work on things with us. Oh, I see a question from Matt. Is it open to Barnard students? So the Design Center is open to all Columbia and Barnard affiliates. Right now, we're not, alums aren't able to access it just because of, again, like the COVID restrictions about getting onto campus. You have to be on this co-verified app thing and, have proof of vaccination and testing. But again, like in the future and in the past before COVID, we had alums able to access the Design Center. Yeah.
Lucy, I'm not monitoring the back channel. Is there any questions jumping out there? I know Kelly just pulled two.
Yeah. Well, there was another one about about the beekeeping. The beekeeping was great. I personally, a little afraid of bees, maybe stung too many times as a child, but they were able to go up and actually explore the beehive. And I think they brought in some baby bees into the actual classroom, and they were able to look at those as well. And we did create, using recycled materials, they created solitary beehives that they're going to be using in, near their schools. Oh, wow, ouch, stung on the tongue. Yeah, so I think that was really a fun one. And there was also, talk from teachers about setting up their own beehives, if it's allowed near their schools. And that's another thing, like, because we have the funds, to be able to help them do that, it's actually something that is like achievable if they would like to do it, which is great.
And my question early on was, I used to work at University of Chicago, and it was the part of, I know that some professors got grants that required them to have some sort of public interfacing as part of that grant. And so often they partnered with other units at University of Chicago. So I worked for a science and technology, science and math unit. And so anyway, I'm wondering if your design lab is going to be an outlet for professors who have to have some sort of education component as part of their research or anything like that. Is that something that's come up in discussions at all, out of curiosity?
It's come up on a case-by-case basis. We've had some professors, who are working on research come in and will support, if any part of the design component that they need to. Because we're still, fairly new as a space, we're still kind of building what we're going to be doing and building partnerships. It's interesting because Barnard College is pretty small, but, even so, some departments still haven't really heard of us, like we're still doing outreach to try to connect with different parts of the college. We recently worked with the environmental science department. A professor reached out to us and wanted to try to do a project with their students around, or basically involving somehow teaching them a skill that they could take into potential careers in the future. So we decided to teach them a 3D modeling software, and they designed their own shovels to do soil sampling. So we had them design, they learned that skill, and then we printed them out. And this was kind of during COVID, so we were able to send that to them. So that was a fun new collaboration, and it's going to continue to collaborate with that professor in the future. But as far as like other faculty and professors working in this space, they were trying to build those relationships as we keep going as a center. Yeah.
Lucy's also, I see her asking about, she says she's curious about the specific tools and activities of the program and how this was structured.
So we tried to think of ways, and in the beginning there was it was difficult because we weren't sure, where all the teachers were coming from as far as like what they had access to, and, having them go back with a lot of things, might not be useful if they weren't able to use it. So we tried, we focused, on things that we thought could translate into the curriculum that they already had existing, so engineering design process, thinking about using that in their science and math curriculum already. And as far as the tech that we use, so Lucy, could you clarify, do you mean the tech that we used within, or the kind of resources that we were?
I'm curious as to if the teachers used any tech in the actual PD. And I guess I also am curious, now that we have experienced the pandemic, has the tech situation in public schools gotten better, so there might be more access to? I'm wondering if that's been a shift from the pandemic, whereas traditionally under-resourced schools maybe have not had one-to-one devices, maybe they do now, and the potential for doing more with them is there? I'm just curious as to what tools. I also would be curious about the specific kinds of lessons or activities or curriculum that you use too.
Yeah, so it was honestly a little more analog. They did more hands-on work, as far as like the beekeeping and doing the biodiversity index with the trees when they went to the park and the areas in the park. I did introduce them to some more free things. So we used Shadow Puppet, which is a way that they can, create videos with their students. So if they're going to be doing any observations in the park, if they had iPads, they could bring them out and, the students could create their own videos to kind of document their work as a kind of digital, journal of their science journal that they could create. And then we had, iPads and some laptops for them to use while we were doing the engineering, the design challenge. But I think we decided consciously not to be too tech heavy with it, just in case, they didn't have access to iPads in their classroom. And we were telling them, you have to be able to use, technology to be able to do these lessons in the classroom. But I think it is, especially like you said, with this past year with the pandemic, tech has become so important, with teaching. And then, so I think, it's possible that with the funds, maybe we could provide, if teachers want it, we could provide some more tech and support in how to use that tech in the classroom. And that's kind of what my background is in. So I'd be really interested in helping them with that. But maybe Migdalia, do you want to talk to like what you have? And then do you feel like it would have been better to have more tech in or no? Yeah.
I actually like the hands-on experience because then as an educator, it allows me to kind of be differentiated according to the type of population that I have and the skills that I know either I want my students to attain or the lesson goal for the day. But in my case, my school, Isaac Newton Middle School for Math and Science, all my students have their own iPad. I have 4 classes, which is approximately roughly 110 students, and each student has their own iPad, and they complete all their assignments in that one iPad, and that iPad is theirs throughout the entire day. Because of COVID, we assigned number designation and make sure that they are 3 feet apart. But we're kind of lucky because each student is able to have an iPad. So, for instance, when we go out on Friday, if the students decide that they want to do some differentiation and use Shadow Puppet as their initial research and to start documenting, how they're analyzing, things in their neighborhood, they're more than welcome to take their iPads outside.
Anyone else want to shout something out? Or we have Migdalia and Kelly still here.
And what are the future plans? Like it sounded like this was a pilot, Kelly. Mm-hmm. What's the plan for expanding or growing it, or what do you want to see happen in the future?
Yeah, so the plan is, we're going to continue to support this cohort, which is about 16 teachers right now. And by the way, I don't know if I mentioned, so we have traditional classroom teachers that are in the cohort, but then also people from the Boys and Girls Club at Harlem who participated. So, who have educational spaces, but not in a traditional, K-12 classroom setting. So the goal is to continue to support the current cohort and then take on a new cohort next year. So next school year, we'll do another institute in the summer and continue to support. And the idea is really that, after the pilot, we were kind of in contact with the foundation that's funding this. And if the pilot goes well, and we're collecting data on that to make sure that we can kind of prove that it's successful, that they're going to continue funding. I think it's about 5 more years that they would give us, a larger budget, and then another 5 years, and then hopefully continue on beyond that as well.
Is there a website that we should look at? I put the link to your Medium story and to the Barnard story that you gave me. Is there any other place that we should refer people to if they want to see more about this?
So there is, I think there's a little more of a feature on the Office of Community Engagement and Inclusion's website. I might go to Barnard's website and see if I can find it. I think that they're still building the official site for this. Like it's going to have its own page on the Barnard website and have more details, but it might still be in process. There's still, hiring also coordinators and things for the program to help out as well. Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
How many people were involved? I mean, how many teachers, how many staff, out of curiosity, just to understand the scope of it?
Yeah, so we had, there's about 16 teachers in the cohort, or educators in the cohort, and then we had faculty. So there was about 4 or 5 faculty members. So we had 2 people from the architecture department. We had a professor from the environmental science and ecology, from biology, which was the beekeeping, and who am I forgetting? I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. And then there's also somebody from the president's office who was kind of collecting data and helping in that way. And the staff in the Office of Inclusion and that's kind of doing this, and then myself. So probably about 8 or 9 stakeholders, and then about 16 in the cohort. And I think we're trying to do more partnerships with other departments, like get other people involved in it, especially for the next cohort coming in, and also hire, more people to support, because, and also actually we just started, there's a group of fellows that have been helping out with some of the PDs as well, and are going to be helping with the implementation in the classroom. So it's growing is the short answer for that.
I just reposted Kelly's Medium piece. Someone asked for that. Any more comments, questions from our audience? No? Okay, well, Migdalia and Kelly, I want to thank you for teaching us. I want to thank you for learning with us. And I want to thank you for sharing with us. This was great. Come back soon.
Yes, thank you. It was great. Thank you for having me.
Before we wrap up, for those of you who are new to us, we are a group of people interested in innovation who are meeting every week on Fridays at 1 o'clock Central Time to discuss interesting initiatives like this. And anybody's welcome to join us. We are discussing things. We are writing in Medium in a publication, and our hope is to eventually grow a consultancy, but we're kind of a long ways from that right now. And so, please invite more people to it. You can find us on Eventbrite and Facebook and Twitter and whatever. We'd love to have people, join either just our conversations or join. We actually have a Slack behind the scenes where we're sharing more stuff, and it's a little bit more heavy lifting back there. But everybody's welcome to join us and be part of this kind of informal professional learning community that's interested in moving education forward. So you can email me at Lucy Gray Consulting if you want to know more, and I'll send you more about it. But that's our story. And I want to thank Don and Migdalia and Kelly again for sharing your work. So good to see you and meet you, Migdalia, and to see some of our friends online as well too. And Kelly, thank you. This sounds like a really great program. It really should be replicated other places. Like these public-private partnerships are so essential and authentic and rooted in local goodness. And if every business or academic institution kind of took a school under their wing or something like this, I think it would make a huge difference. So I hope we hear more stories from you going forward, and congratulations on a really successful program.
Yeah, just before we go, Lucy, Peggy's asking about where we post the recordings, which I know.
Yeah, I put them to our Twitter. Our Twitter is actionable.inno. And when I get around to it, I still have 2 I have to post from our past 2 conversations, and hopefully I'll get this one done more quickly. And they're also up on YouTube too, Peggy. And I'll send them, if you registered, I'll send you the link to everything as well as soon as I get everything processed. But everybody's welcome to join us next week. I'm not sure what we're doing yet because we had a whole series of things and now we're kind of regrouping. But hopefully next Friday we'll be doing something fun and having a great conversation as well. So thanks everybody for coming. If you want to stick around and chat, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to stop recording right now.